Hi, this is Vikas Singh from Horizon, and today's video I am going to discuss you about SQL Server 2014 failover cluster. So, SQL Server 2014 failover cluster installation and configuration step by step. So, if you want our help in configuring a SQL Server failover cluster for you, you can contact us. Our contact details is given in below description. You can take the advantage of our highly technical engineers to build a failover cluster for you. So, let's move to next slide. In this slide you can see my demo environment. I am using basically 3 virtual machines to give you the demo of SQL Server 2014 failover cluster installation and configuration step by step. So my first machine is Win2K12 DC01, which is my Active Directory server. Here you can see I have installed Active Directory and DNS role on this machine. If I go on local server, you can see my computer name Win2K12 DC01, and you can see also my domain control domain name, which is origin.co, and you can see I have assigned 4 gig of RAM to this machine, and this machine having total 60 gig of storage hard drive as a C drive. So this is my domain controller, and my second machine is SQL Node 1 and third machine is SQL Node 2. Both machines have the same configuration in RAM, hard drive, operating system, and others OS specific configuration like hardware or software. So the first machine is SQL-Node 01. You can see here this is SQL Node 01. If you see here on a local server, computer name SQL-Node 01, and this machine is joined in my domain, and this machine having 20 gig of RAM and around 60 gig of hard drive, which is attached with this machine. And same if you go to second machine SQL Node 02, you can see the computer name is SQL-Node 02, and this machine is also joined in my domain origin.co, and the installed memory you can see 20 GB. So here if you go, you can see the C drive around 60 gig. Also you can see my both SQL node have 4 NIC 0, NIC 1, 01, 02, 03 and 04. If you are going to buy a physical server, generally you will receive a physical server with 4 physical network adapters. So to give you the demo of like a physical server, I am using the 4 NIC and this all 2 SQL servers. You can see on SQL Server 2 also. So let's move to a step-by-step SQL Server 2014 failover cluster. So the first thing you can see here, rename Windows Server 2012 and join and domain and restart. So if you go here on SQL Server, you can see I have already joined this machine in domain. The computer is renamed like which it's supposed to be, like SQL-Node 01, and same with SQL Server 2, which is SQL-Node 02. Also you can see these machines are joined in my domain, which is origin.co. So good to go. We can start from our step 1, which is install HyperV Role on both SQL node. So here is the question, why we are going to install a HyperV Role on our SQL Server. So basically we are going to create a Windows failover cluster first, then we are going to add a SQL Server role on our Windows failover cluster. So I want to use converged network switches in HyperV, which is the latest switches which provide the extended support for networking on a HyperV and a Windows failover cluster. So I'm going to install a HyperV role on both SQL node first. So manage, add role and features, click next, and here you can see the role based or feature based installation. So SQL HyperV role is a role basically, so we need to go to select a role based installation, click next, and here you can see our server SQL-Node 01 origin.co.in. so click next, Now we have a HyperV role here. Select the HyperV role, click the add feature, and now you can click next, and you need to leave everything default here. No need to select or allow anything. Just go and select this, restart the destination server automatically if required. Yes, I want to restart. Click install, and same we need to do on our SQL Server Node 2. So server manager, manage, add role and features, click next, and role based features. Feature based installation, click next, and here you can see the server name SQL-Node 02. Click next. We need to select HyperV role, add features. It will take some time. So here you can see the HyperV cannot be installed. The processor does not meet the requirement of virtualization compatibility. So here's the trick. When you are going to install a HyperV role, you must have to check your hardware server or physical server. If you are installing on a virtual server or your virtual machine as Intel VT technology enabled. So in this case I need to go here and a setting. If I go on processors, you can see virtualization Intel VT technology is not enabled. That's why we are getting this message. So if you go here on node 1, you can see this technology is enabled here, Intel VT. So make sure before installing HyperV you need to enable Intel VT technology, otherwise you are not going to, or this is not going to allow you to install a HyperV role. So let's do this and then we try. So make sure if you are using a hardware server, you need to go to BIOS and then you need to enable the Intel VT technology, and if you are using a virtual machine, you need to allow processor for a virtualization Intel VT technology. Click OK, and now we are good to go. Power on the SQL Server Node 2. So SQL Node 1 is completed. We can log in here. And log into SQL Node 2, and we need to install a HyperV role on this machine, as we have enabled the Intel VT technology. Go to manage. So it will take some time till the time it's loading. So we are good to go now. Add role and features. Click next. Role based installations. Click next, and here is the server name, and we need to select the Intel VT technology. Now you can see we are good to go. Click next. Leave the everything default and select the restart the destination computer automatically. Yes, and finish. And now it will take 1 or 2 minutes to get the installation done for HyperV Role. Then after installation, server is going to reboot itself. And the next step is create NIC teaming and converge network. For why we are installing HyperV Role. So now we are going to create a converge network. So till the time node 2 is coming up after rebooting, we are going to configure it on node 1. So now you can see installation is succeeded. You can see the HyperV role is installed. Now we are good to go to run the script. If you open here my script, you can see here this script is using 4 NIC, virtual NIC as a domain, SCSI, cluster, and live migration. And this is the script. This is going to create a 4 virtual NIC network adapter on our server. So we'll see how it's going. So the first thing we need to create here, we need to create one team. So to create a converged HyperV NIC team, we need to go to server manager, local server, and then you can see the teaming is disabled. So I'm going to click on this, and after this you need to select here and new team, and you can see we have a 4 NIC here. So I'm going to select all 4 NIC to create a redundant team for my SQL Server failover cluster. So wait for it, it will going to save the setting for NIC teaming, and then we have a new team which is, so now you can see active. It's installing some drivers, so it will take some time to bring the all NIC active, so we need to wait for a few seconds here. Let's open the network security and security center. Here you can see now we have a converged network VNIC. If I go here on details, you can see here we have a 4 physical NIC and 1 team which we have just created. Now you can see team is up, all the 4 NIC is up, so we are good to go and close this up. And now if I refresh here, you can see all the 4 NIC is gone. We have only 1 NIC which is converged VNIC, which is basically a team. So now we are good to go and run the script. So I'm going to open a PowerShell ISC, run as administrator. Yes. And now I'm going to browse my script from desktop. So here is the ConvertNet switch script. Open. Now I'm going to run this script. After completing this script, you will see we have a 4 virtual adapter which is domain NIC, ISKC, cluster, and live migration. So now you can see it's working on it. So we have a 3 NIC and now we have a 4 NIC. You can see the script is completed. So now we can go ahead and close this. And same we need to follow on our SQL node 2 to make sure we have the same network configuration on both the SQL node. So I'm going to log in now on SQL node 2. So we have to wait for server manager and we'll see HyperV Role is installed or not. So now you can see it's collecting the information and you can see the installation succeeded for HyperV Role. So go ahead, close this. The first thing we need to go and create a team. So click on NIC teaming. We have 4 NIC also here, so I'm going to copy the name from a script which is for team name. So paste it and select all 4 NIC here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and click OK. Let's verify from the network security center. So you can see converged VNIC is created. Now we can go ahead, minimize this, and also you can see the team is created. So all the 4 NIC is active, so we can go ahead and close this. Go to server manager and need to refresh here. Then we have a NIC team name and NIC team enable, so everything seems good. Now we can go ahead and open the PowerShell to run our script. So run as administrator. Going to browse my script from desktop, open the script and then run this script to create a 4 virtual adapter as we have created on our SQL node 1. So it will take some time. So now you can see all 4 NIC is created and the script is completed. So now we can go ahead and close this. If I refresh now, you can see we have a 4 NIC, cluster NIC, domain NIC, ISKC NIC, and live migration NIC. And same we have on SQL node 1. So now we can move to next step, which is configure IP address on all 4 NIC virtual NICs. So I'm going to do first on my SQL 01 So in my cluster I'm going to use, you need to design your IP scheme for addressing scheme for your domain infrastructure and your cluster. So I'm going to put it like in a different subnets only to make the simple demo here. So my domain, I think I'm going to put on 192.168.1.241. No default gateway. I'm not going to put any default gateway in any NIC because I am not going to connect these servers in internet for now. So this is configured on cluster NIC. I'm going to configure a IP address for 192.168.2 dot, you can see 241, and I'm not going to put the DNS and the default gateway because this network cluster VNIC is basically a heartbeat network between my both the SQL node SQL cluster. So go ahead, click OK. And for iSCSI I'm going to use a 10 series IP address, class A IP address. So put it here like 10.10.10.241 and the class C default subnet mask. And for live migration I'm going to use a again class C IP address, which is 192.168.3.241. Not going to put any DNS or default gateway because this is going to be a live migration network for my cluster between my cluster nodes only. Now we can go ahead and refresh this. So you can see we have configured IP address on cluster, domain, iSCSI or live migration, all for NIC. So same I'm going to configure on my NIC SQL node 2 for all 4 NICs. So 192.1.242. Don't put the DNS and default gateway in cluster network. We have a domain network now. On domain NIC we need to put the DNS IP address. So 192.168.1.242 and 192.168.244, which is my domain controller IP address. And here we have a iSCSI traffic 242 and class C default subnet mask. And the live migration we are using class C again. So 192.168.3.242 and the class C default subnet mask. So now you can see the IP address is configured on node 2 as well as. So if you want to make a simple configuration check, so you can go ahead here and I'm going to SQL node 1 and you can see the IP address configuration now. For cluster I'm using 192.168.2.41 on node 1 and node 2 2.42, and for domain I'm using 192.168.1.241. so same I have configured on node 2, and here is the class A IP address for iSCSI 110.10.241 and here we have a 1042. And same for live migration I'm using 192.168.3.241 and here 242. So we are done with this. Now we can move to next step, which is install failover cluster and multipathing on SQL node. So I'm going to do this on node 1 and node 2 both. So add a node and features. This is a feature based installation both. So go to feature selection. Also make sure you have installed the .NET framework on SQL Node because it's required while installing the SQL Server role, SQL Server. So I'm going to select here failover clustering. And go down, we have a multi-pathing IO. So we need to select both failover clustering and MPIO. Click install. Same go and do on MySQL Node 2. Add a role and features. This is a feature based installation. Go to feature page, select failover clustering, then you need to click the multi-pathing IO and install. So now you can see on node 1 installation is completed. So go ahead and close this and wait for node 2. It will take less than 1 minute to get the installation done. So installation succeeded on node 2 also. Now our next step is enable MPIO and restart the both cluster node. So I'm going to do this now. To enable the MPIO, go to tools. We have an MPIO here, and if you have any hardware ISCSI storage, then you need to, or a SAS storage, you need to select here add a support for SAS devices. So I'm going to use ISCSI devices, ISCSI storage. So I'm going to click here add support for ISCSI devices and click add, and this is giving a message a reboot is required to complete this operation. Reboot now, yes. And same I'm going to do on my node 2 as well as. So tools, MPIO, devices, multipathing, add support for ISCSI and reboot. So node 1 is rebooted. Go ahead and log in. And the next step is discover ISCSI target and add disk on both cluster nodes. So this is something we need to make sure we have a proper high available storage disk which is coming from any storage devices to our cluster node. So I'm going to create a ISCSI target on my domain controller to give you the demo how to create ISCSI target and how to map with SQL node if you don't have any hardware SAS device or hardware storage device. So I'm going to click here on manage ISCSI target. You can see we have to create a ISCSI virtual disk and start a new ISCSI virtual disk wizard. So before I want to show you I have installed. Here you can see I have installed SQL Server this file server target here to enable the SQL Server machines to get the storage. So this is installed. So now I'm going to create one quorum disk here first. So go here and select the C drive. I have only C drive on my domain controller, so not an issue. Go ahead, click next and type the disk name. I'm going to call it quorum disk and click next, and I'm going to put the size dynamic expandable and 1 gig. Click next, and we have a new ISCSI target. I don't have any target, so here you can see discover ISCSI target. So this is the target which I am going to create. So I'm going to put here like ISCSI target. Click next, and access server, you can see we need to put the access give the permission to which server or which device can access this target. So click on add, and here you can see we have a multiple option. We can select the DNS name, IP address, MAC address, or IQN number. So I'm going to make it very simple. Go to browse and put our SQL node 01, and you can see it's there. click OK. So now this ISC target have permission to connect with this node 1, and same I'm going to put here my SQL node 02 and check name. Now we can go ahead and add this also. We have added both the nodes here. Click next, and I'm not going to enable the authentication here, and we are good to go and create. So now you can see we have created one ISC disk here, and it's connected with our target. Same, I'm going to add one more disk here for cluster disk. So I'm going to select the default option, server name, and ISC disk storage. Click next, and I'm going to call it like SQL cluster disk 01. Click next. Dynamic, I'm going to make it 30 gig or make it 31 gig. Click next, and I'm going to map with the existing target, ISC target, which we have just created. Click next and click on create. And now we have a one target which having two virtual disks. So now I can go here on my SQL node and can discover the ISC target. To discover the ISC target, need to go on tools, ISC initiator, run, and it will open ISC initiator. And now we need to put the IP address, which is 10.10.10.100 in my case. So click on QConnect, and now you can see it's connected with this target which we have created, ISC-target-target. So go ahead. Now we need to disconnect once, and we need to connect as a multipathing, enable multipathing. So click OK. Now if I go to disk management, you can see we have a multiple disk which is coming from ISC. It's there. So now I'm going to change my CD drive to letter Z. Click OK. Now I'm going to bring both the disk online, and then initialize disk GPT. Click OK. Now I'm going to create a partition, call it like Q drive letter, and I'm going to call it like QRM disk. And this is a SQL disk, so I'm going to call it D drive and call it SQL disk 01. Let's open my computer and verify the disk is coming. So we have a two disk, one is Q as a QRM disk and D as a SQL Server disk. So go ahead and close this, and we need to enable these two disks on our node 2 also. So I'm going there and go to ISC initiator. Yes, I want to run on every time. Open disk management also. So I'm going to change this drive as a Z drive, CD drive, and now I'm going to put the IP address of my ISC target 10.10.100. We connect. I'm going to disconnect once because I want to connect as a multipathing, so enable multipathing. Click OK. Now we have both disks available here, so I'm going to bring the SQL disk first. So now you can see this disk is assigned here as a D drive, and I'm going to bring this, but we need to make sure we have to change the drive letter as a Q. So now you can see on SQL node 1 and SQL node 2 we have added both the disk, QRM disk and SQL Server disk. So the next task is validate and create a Windows failover cluster. So I'm going to do this now. So from node 1 I'm going to click on tools, failover cluster manager, and here I'm going to click on validate cluster configurations. Click next, I'm going to put the browse and I'm going to type my names, SQL nodes, select both the SQL node, click OK. Now click next and run all the tests which is recommended. Click next and we click next to confirm, and this validation will take few minutes to get the validate all the setting for our both SQL node clusters. So we need to wait for few minutes here. So now you can see the test is completed successfully, so we are good to go and create the Windows failover cluster. So everything is looks like successful. Also, if you want to go and see the report, you can go here and see the report, and if you want to save the reports, you can save also. So here you can see we have a few warning and in a network and storage, so that's good. We can go ahead. So now make sure you have click here create the cluster now with this validated nodes, so which is our basically this task, validate and create the Windows failover cluster. So I'm going to do this now. So click next. So I'm going to call it win cluster, and make sure you are giving the IP address for your domain name, which is in our case going to use 240 in my domain network infrastructure IP address. So click next, and now we have add all eligible storage to this cluster. Yes. So now it's creating the cluster for us, and it will add both the SQL node 1 and SQL node 2 on this Windows cluster. So if you go to Active Directory and see the cluster object, Active Directory users and computer, you can see my server is here in origin. You can see one cluster object is created here. In a description you can see failover cluster virtual network name account. So it's going to automatically create. So we are done. You have successfully completed create cluster wizard. Go and finish here. Now you can see here we have a cluster. No role has been defined yet. And now you can see here in node we have one node, SQL node 1 and SQL node 2, and you can see the settings also here, NICs, roles, disk and pool, and same you can see here. Summary, we have all the memory available, 19 gig around, and everything is there. Now we need to go to storage and see the disk. You can see we have a quorum disk, so I'm going to make it rename, which is our next task, modify the cluster disk and network settings. So I'm going to do this. So make it quorum disk, and this disk I'm going to make a cluster disk, so call it SQL disk 01 and apply. And now I'm going to change the network setting. Here you can see this network is basically belong for iSCSI, so I'm going to open my network, or you can also use my script to copy the name from here. So like iSCSI NIC, call this network iSCSI, and this is my domain NIC, so I'm going to call it domain NIC. And this is for cluster, so make it cluster disk, cluster network. And finally we have a live migration VNIC, and we need to make sure we have changed the setting here for live migration also. Live migration settings, I'm going to allow live migration for my live migration ports only. So move to up and select the live migration NIC and click OK. So now we are done, and now we are going to install SQL Server 2014 on SQL Node 1 in a failover cluster mode. So I'm going to mount the installation media on my node. So go to setting, and I'm going to browse my SQL media. Here we have a SQL 2014 Service Pack 2, so I'm going to open it. Now I'm going to run this setup. So click on install, and we have here new SQL Server failover cluster installation. So click on it. And it will take some time to give it the installation wizard. So we can minimize this. Now you can see, please wait while the SQL Server 2014 setup process. So as this is just demo, I am going to use the evaluation mode. Click next. I accept the license terms. Click next. Now you can see it will check the pre-request for failover cluster for SQL Server. Maybe this can take some time. Now everything looks good. You can check for Windows update for SQL Server, so I'm not going to check it. Click next, and now it's copying the installation setup file to local installation drive on SQL node. So this will take few minutes. So install cluster failover cluster rule is checked and everything seems good. Click next. Now we have SQL Server feature installation. Now you can see all features listed here, so it's depend on you what is your requirement to install in SQL Server failover cluster. So I'm going to install a database engine and SQL Server Management Studio for now, and click next. So now we have SQL Server network name and SQL Server cluster instance name. So network name I am going to put here SQL cluster 01 and click next. I'm going to use the default instance name, which is MS SQL Server. And now we can see we have available storage and cluster group both, so you can go ahead and click next. Now we can see the disk SQL hyphen disk 01 can be used because this disk is in the available storage. If you go here in storage, you can see this is SQL hyphen disk 01 is available, so we are getting this disk here. If you are not getting any disk here, you need to make sure you have available storage disk in a cluster. So good to go. Click next. And we need to configure the IP address, so I'm going to make manual here. So call it 192.168.1.232. Network, you can see the domain VNIC. So click next. And we need to put the credential here. So origin, I'm going to put SQL admin, and password for SQL admin account same I'm going to put here also. Origin SQL admin and password. Now we can click next, and it will check the credential. If everything looks good, then it will allow. And now you can see we have SQL Server configuration, and I'm going to add my current account here on a Windows authentication mode to log into SQL Server. And if you go to data directories, you can see this is going to D drive for everything like user database for log, temporary log, and backup directory is also going to D drive, which is D drive is coming from our cluster node. So good to go, click next. Now we have all the features which we have just selected and the configuration which we have just selected. So you can see the configuration file path is this, going to be a ini file here, which we are going to install in this installation. So click next or click install to begin the installation for SQL Server 2014 failover cluster. So this installation will take some time to get the installation done for SQL Server 2014 on this node. And then we can see here the role is going to up in few seconds, few minutes, once we have SQL Server installed. And after this we need to verify SQL Server cluster role on a failover cluster. Then we can go ahead and install SQL Server 2014 on SQL Node 02. Basically this is going to add to cluster, so we need to wait for the installation, then we can verify the SQL Server failover cluster. So the installation is almost finished. It will take another few minutes to get the installation complete. Then we can verify the node. If I go to here on my SQL cluster, you can see the SQL role is here now, and it's running on owner node, which is SQL-node 01. And if I go to resources, you can see the cluster node is still off, so it's getting online, other resources. So you can see the installation is still in background going on. So once the installation is up, completed, we'll have the fully functional running SQL Server cluster with one node. And we need to add a second node, which is our next step. So we need to wait for a few seconds. Now you can see the IP name is up, which is SQL cluster 01. IP is up, and if you want to check, you can go ahead and check here, like ping SQL cluster 01. You can see it's replying on IP32, which we have configured. Now I think you can see the installation is succeeded, so everything is completed successfully. Now we can go ahead and close this, and SQL installation also we can close. And you can see now we have a step which is verify SQL Server cluster role on failover cluster. So now you can see it's running on one node 1 successfully, but we can't move this role to SQL Server role to any other node because we don't have any other SQL Server node which is participating in this role. So if I go here on properties, you can see the SQL node is 02 is there, but the SQL Server is still not installed. So I'm going to install now on node 2. So on node 2 I'm going to add the SQL Server 2014 installation media on a DVD drive. ISO SQL Server and 2014 Service Pack 2, which we have installed on our SQL Node 1. And now we can launch the setup. Now we need to click on installation, and here we have option add a node to SQL Server cluster, failover cluster. So click on this. So it will take some time. We can minimize this. Evaluation mode, click next. I accept the license terms, click next, and now it's running the checks for a global rules. So seems everything going to be passed successfully. Then we have a next option. So it's for Windows update, click next, and we can check for SQL update later on. Now it's checking for the installation setup files. So everything is passed. So now we can click next, and here you can see we have a node 2, and the instance name which is running on SQL Server cluster is MS SQL, and we have instance name, we have a cluster name which is SQL cluster 01, and we have a node, which node is assigned, and feature is also given there, which feature is installed on that particular SQL Server installation wizard. So we can go ahead, everything seems good here, click next. And now we don't need to select anything in networking, because you can see it's already taken the network IP address for SQL cluster which we have just set up. So click next. Now we need to put the credential here to authenticate our identity. So let me type my credential for SQL Server admin and click next. There's something wrong with credential. You can see SQL Server account login password not valid. So I need to type again. Now click next, and it's checking the credential again. So everything's good. Now you can see the configuration file is going to create here, and we have selected all the things which we just selected on wizard. It's given there. So click on install button to initiate the installation for SQL Server 2014 on a cluster mode, and now it's going to add this node in a cluster, and then we have a both uh, redundant cluster available for this node. So it will take some time. So we need to get the installation finished, then we can verify SQL Server cluster by moving SQL cluster role. So once this machine is also joined as a SQL Server cluster role, then we can move this SQL Server running cluster role from one node to second node. So let's wait for installation gets completed. So now you can see the installation is completed and everything is succeeded. So we can go ahead and close this. Also we can close this. So now you can see the SQL Server cluster is running on node 1 and all the resources on node 1. So I'm going to move it to node 2 for demo, like how it's moving, it's working or not. So select the move, and if you have a more than 2 nodes, you can select the node name from here. Either you can go ahead and select the best possible node. So we have only one node. Now you can see it's taking the resources offline. So everything goes offline and now it's bringing online on node 2. So it will take less than 30 seconds to get all the resources online for this SQL Server cluster on node 2. And now I'm going to reboot this SQL node while the SQL Server cluster is running, so you can see how it's going on. So I'm going to reboot now. So you can see shutting down the service, cluster service. You can see when I am shutting down or rebooting the SQL node, it's by default uh, automatically moving the roles SQL Server cluster nodes from node 1 to node 2. So now let's wait, it's rebooted, and now if I go to login and same, I want to check with the node 1 also. I'm going to reboot node 1 this time and we'll see if it's moving to node 2 or not by automatic. So open a failover cluster manager. You can see it's running on node 1. Now I'm going to reboot node 1. Go here, restart. You can see start shutting down service cluster service, and now it's moving the role on node 2. See, resources is taking online, getting online on node 2. So now you can see it's moved to node 2. So this is the demo of SQL Server 2014 failover cluster and Microsoft Windows failover cluster. So thank you for watching, and if you have any query related to this, please contact us. Our contact details is given below description. Thank you once again. Bye bye.